Moving on to the Bestiary, there are a lot more new creatures popping up, and we can only imagine as we get into the tournament that that's going to continue to be the case. So highlighting a few of the ones that there's more information on, the Relic Keeper, which is described as a large dragon made of forgotten trash with the ability to preserve living and non-living things with its magic. It is a trash dragon. And its reproduction is through fable. So this is one of the ones we haven't seen as often, but essentially when a hoard of treasure or trash, I guess, has been sequestered from the world for 100 years, at that point a Relic Keeper will spawn. And their trial of worth specifically involves sifting through garbage to find treasure, which often results in arcanists destroying their hands, getting cut up, all sorts of injuries. Their magical abilities, their evocation is a dust that cuts like glass, so it's trash dust. Manipulation and augmentation, they're able to preserve living creatures at the point of death, keeping them alive but in stasis. So this is something that we saw with the preservation of the Abyssal Leash, able to use magic to keep it alive for a long period of time when it shouldn't have been alive otherwise. And then from a passive ability point, they are able to tell the abilities and the strengths of different magical items just based on holding them and interacting with them. And I will say that I absolutely love the Relic Keeper dragon. It is such a fun premise.
So there's the Trash Panda, which is a raccoon, and then there's the Relic Keeper, which is
a trash dragon.
A trash dragon, yeah.
It's tier 4 though, so
what's that?
It's tier 4 though, so
right. I mean, again, you can't really argue with it.
No, it is very powerful. So and very unique and very powerful abilities as well.
And even how it's fable-born, pile of trash sequestered for over 100 years. Imagine it's at year 99 and 363 days, and somebody randomly happens upon it, and it's just like, son of a p, I was almost there.
So close.
Now I got to start all over again. So moving on to the Ghostlight, which was the professor that we met in the university library. So the Ghostlight it's also called Spooklights. They are green and blue or glowing jellyfish-like creatures attracted to knowledge and intelligence. Their reproduction is also fable. They are spawned in abandoned buildings that used to be of great importance. One big thing to note with Ghostlights are these are one of the mystical creatures that actually prefers to bond with older, more mature humans rather than with somebody very young. They prefer intelligence. We actually don't know what their trial of worth is, but we do know their evocation is telekinesis, or be able to move things telepathically. And they are also able to manipulate smoky illusions. And this is how the professor in the library was explaining the 13 god creatures.
Very, very interesting, and then also unique preferences of the Ghostlights. So, and then the last one that we'll talk about is the Will-O-Wisps, which are, as mentioned, they're small beings of fire, and they're known for either helping or tricking lost travelers. And it really depends on the color that they come in. So red wisps are known as tricksters, and they're known to lead people astray. Purple wisps guide children back to their parents. Blue wisps help those lost in bad weather. And then white wisps are supposed to guide people to a great destiny. There are also green wisps, which are very rare, and their attributes aren't known, but they are suspected to be much greater. We don't know much about the reproduction, but evocation, they're able to use fire, though, as we saw with Zaxxas and Lyle, much, much weaker than a phoenix, and not too much detail around passive abilities that they gain.
All right, and that ends this week's episode. Again, we want to remind everybody that today that this episode is coming out, Death Lord Arcanist is being released. Again, go over to Amazon and get that looked into. I know I'll be trying to consume it as fast as I can. And again, we're waiting to find out the exact date release for Time Marked Warlock, which is her new urban fantasy book. So we know it should be sometime in April. So we just want to reiterate that. We do want to thank you for listening today and thank our editor, Dan Mackison. You can find this podcast on Podbean, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere a podcast is playing. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook as well. And we do want to give a special thank you to the Frith Chronicles fandom as we get into all of the bestiaries and all of these different mystical creatures through these sections. So they are going to be a huge help. I know once the bestiary book comes out, which hopefully is, again, sometime here in the near future, and I believe they're still taking orders for the bestiary as well, we should be getting more information about these mystical creatures. If you want to get in touch with us, you can send us an email at frithguildpod@gmail.com, or you can shoot us a message on Facebook or comment on our Facebook page. Scott, was there anything else you'd like to add?
Check back next week for a new next step in the Pokemon journey.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next week.